Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it, midweek editions here at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. And Elijah's like, you know what, we got to be doing the show outside today, the next 2 days. Fantastic. We will dive into some Nebraska football, their thoughts against Buffalo. We are on the doorstep of NFL Eve. So some NFL thoughts here as things get rolling. Tampa tomorrow. And how about them Cowboys? Get rolling for Thursday night. We'll check in with Mike Babcock from HailVarsity.com and magazine. He is back. He should be on the putting green, but he'll take time away. Mike Schuhart. Shuey's all loaded up for Husker football. I mean, he is ready to give us his take as Buffalo is set to invade in hour two. Very excited to spend time, sit down with Ron Brown, coach. Now senior offensive analyst, but longtime coach at Nebraska. Coach Brown with us in 1 hour. And then a little Big Ten buffet. Rick Pizzo is on his way into town as part of BTN's coverage for Nebraska and Buffalo doing sidelines. A Jock Doc will round you out. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Give us a follow on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, Chris Schmidt at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. And, of course, can email Chris at HailVarsity.com. So let me ask the question here as Saturday looms. How you feeling? Huh? How you feeling as a Nebraska fan? Illinois, Fordham, now Buffalo. I think the line has jumped, right? Wasn't it about 10.5 or so? Earlier today, and we'll have Danny Burke tomorrow. I think I'm seeing 13.5. So Wagner's not great. Buffalo looked really good. I think the biggest concern as you go in, a couple of things. One, are you going to start fast if you're Nebraska? You have not done that, and it's amazing what happens with this football team, the instances they do start fast. Can you get out of the gate, be right with your game plan and approach, and then while you may have been right, many instances with your game plan and approach, can you go execute? Can Nebraska start fast, be comfortable, be front running? Those are so important, I think, for this football team and their mentality. Two, if it does get tight, even if you do start fast and Buffalo's still got the old Leipold fingerprints on it with some good players. They're not clearly nearly as good as they were last couple of years where they're knocking on the MAC title door. But how do you respond, right? That's the thing with this football team. Start and response. And sometimes it goes okay. Sometimes it doesn't. And whether it's Fordham or Colorado or Northwestern or Minnesota or pick a game, pick a team, right? Nebraska, at least last week, sucks to say if you're a big Red fan, but at least it was a tight game for the first quarter, right? This team needs to be in more tight games and come out the other end better for it. More battle-tested, more confident. And let's find a bread and butter, right? Let's find a bread and butter. And maybe that started to emerge with Nebraska's ground game, specifically second through third quarter when they just sat and leaned. Now you need to continue to have an improving health with step. And there's a moment, I think Adrian talked about it, and I think Greg Austin talked about it yesterday, where I think it was I don't want to go too far into the fired up category, but I think you had a starting quarterback talking with an offensive line coach saying, let's figure this out, bro. And I don't know if those were the exact words used. And Greg's like, yep, we're getting things figured out. And if they still don't perform for you, then go yell at them. But it's a situation where playing quarterback at Nebraska, the eyes are all on you, and you've seen Adrian flustered Illinois game with back foot and accuracy and not on the throw. And then you saw him find Toure and company with all day, and he looked good. So the question is this, shaky or sound, as we move closer to Saturday? Going to be an emotional ball game, going to be an emotional setting with Nebraska, their alternate uniforms, the September 11th remembrance. And I watched the 30-minute show last night that Mitch Sherman was a part of. We'll talk with Ron Brown about that in great detail, because Ron was a guy that grew up near Harlem before with part of his life, and Coach will tell us about his reaction, experience, and personal connection to some first responders that went into the Twin Towers. And it's really pretty simple about Nebraska taking care of Nebraska, and an opportunity. And Buffalo's all right. I'm glad this game's scheduled. If you're Nebraska, you got to be thankful that you got Fordham. Quite honestly, you had a chance to get the bad taste out of your mouth and go work on you against somebody else, Elijah. But this is intriguing. Whatever happens, happens. But I guess call me gullible, but I think Nebraska will continue to improve and be more sound. They're never going to be perfect. And I feel better about Smothers again parsing it with consider the competition, but Smothers was poised and ready for the lights. You can't necessarily coach that. And sometimes guys, it takes them a little bit longer to get comfortable. I think Smothers is comfortable. I think he wants the moment. And if that ever happens, then you got a guy mentally that's ready to go. I think special teams, as we move forward, it's going to play out huge. And there is going to be a game that Cam Taylor-Britt is back to return a punt that, for all the missteps he's had, I think there'll be a game this year that he'll get the ball, he'll make a return, and it really could help Nebraska win a ball game if they stick with him because of how dynamic he is. He just can't lose confidence. I think what Kaz talked about yesterday with you don't want to punt on the guy, no pun intended. Sorry. It just happened there. But you do have a guy where you don't want it to eat away at him. It's like baseball, right? You make an error at third base, and then you lead off the next inning. You don't want to take with you what happened at third, just like you don't want to take a strikeout with you into the field. You got to leave it there, and you don't want Cam to take with him either. And I don't know that this is the case, but if there's some doubt, obviously there's frustration because he wants to help his team win, but you don't want to take any doubt with you back to playing corner in this league. So I hope it works out. I want to see him make a play and put Nebraska in a short field because that's why he's back. There's 100 different candidates. You know what else I want to see Saturday? I want to see more Alante Brown. Please. We talk about, all right, does he know the playbook? How's the practice Monday through Thursday going? Is he trustable? Okay, all those things. Does quarterback have trust in him knowing what he's doing? You can have him run about 4 different short routes. He's going to shake and bake for an extra 12. Am I dumb? You can say just run a hitch, run a slant, run a go. He's special. His athleticism is special. You can't coach that. You got to find a way to get more footballs to Alante Brown.
And you mentioned the swing, the hitch. The slant, the hitch, and do I say the dreaded word? Give him the swing pass. You were giving it to Wandale last year.
This is a swing pass free area.
So, I'm sorry, but I look at him and with the guys, I think Oliver Martin looks like a guy who is blocking down the field well. Omar Manning in limited snaps doing it seems like he does it well. Let's give him a chance to get out on the edge and let's try the swing pass again. If it doesn't work, burn it. throw it away, never use it again. But I think Alante Brown is a guy that is good.
You're going to encourage it now.
He's a guy who's good in space. But one thing I do want to see is you're right on the money. Someone's got to make a play, whether it's Cam Taylor-Britt, whether it's Adrian Martinez, Omar Manning, Marquis Stepp. I think someone's got to make a play, and someone's got to make a play early. Because you're also talking about the importance of getting off to a fast start. I think it's paramount in this game because you don't want Buffalo to grow into this game.
They can't hang around, man.
We heard Kaz say yesterday they're a team that, despite getting a big win against Wagner, they still don't know all that much about themselves. You got to come out and you got to punch them in the mouth early and let them know, hey, this is Nebraska. You're not supposed to be hanging around with us. You got to let them know that early, and you got to let them know that often, because if you let them hang around early, they're going to grow confidence. They're going to grow into the game, and we've seen Nebraska struggles in close games. I think that would be the worst case scenario.
Well, and listen, you want to talk about panic if you're Nebraska. I'm not saying it'll happen, but there's definitely a pucker factor.
The here we go again factor.
A here we go again, and a pucker factor like you're watching Star Wars and the walls are caving in on you in a tie ball game, or even if you get down. It's okay if this is a 4-quarter game, right? And I know we're talking about starting fast and stomping them out, and that'd be great to see. I don't know that you're going to see it, though. I think Nebraska wins, right? I think they figure out a way to do it. We'll have our predictions Friday from the single barrel. But I think Nebraska wins by being sound, by leaning on the run game, by getting some play action, by getting more involvement with flat-out freak athletes like an Alante Brown and Omar Manning. You get a Martin back, and you get Stepp to get downhill. And if you got to run 400 consecutive plays behind Cam and right guard and right tackle, so be it. Make them stop you. What I need to know is just how for real the Buffalo pass rush is. They have another Khalil Mack hidden there. Probably not. But is it the competition, or is Buffalo that good defensively? And if they are, I mean, that's like nightmare scenario, right? You're up, and you've seen it, right? You saw it against Indiana where you're up 17-3, and you're driving for a not 17-7, but you're driving for pretty formidable lead after a quarter. There's a fumble, there's a return. That is Murphy's Law for Nebraska football in the Frost era. You have a back-breaking turnover. In a lot of instances, it's not just a back-breaking turnover. They also get 7 out of it. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Nebraska's got a lead in most scoop and scores here the last 3.5 years. College football. I mean, you may have one in a decade. Some teams are better at it than others. See the 1999 defense for Nebraska. But Nebraska has given up a lot of scoop and scores the last 7-8 years, right? Or think of the Iowa game. The screen pass that's plucked out of the air for a touchdown, right? In a 28-20 ball game. Or a scoop and score with what happened against Illinois right before the half. I'm missing like 15 others, aren't I? There's been other strip sacks and ball game moments. Mm-hmm. So that's what you fear. And what we also don't know, we'll get to Mike Babcock here in about 5 minutes, is Nebraska a team because of what they are on the offensive line right now? We talked about it, but are they going to morph into a team that's got to hit some passes early to open up the run? And listen, that's okay against tougher competition. But is that what Nebraska is? Are they a team that's going to have to throw to be able to run? Because we all talk about wanting to throw off of the run, the play action that gets you that separation for a tight end or someone screaming down the slot or a go route, right? We know how incredible Nebraska's been historically with their play action game, where they maybe throw 13 times, but they're averaging about 25 a pop with somebody as an option quarterback. So I don't know. I think Buffalo will help kind of define, where Nebraska's offensive line is at. Obviously with their pass rush, but with what they want to do, moving men off the line and getting some yards. And it's okay And this will be one of those games that you didn't really have the patience or the production or the execution against Illinois. You had it second, third, fourth against Fordham. Well, Buffalo is going to be a team that will totally test your patience. They're going to probably dare Adrian to be really good throwing the football, and it'll be 48 people in the kitchen sink in the box, but you still got to figure it out.
Yeah, and one of those plays I really think could be helpful is Austin Allen, that little seam route he runs.
Just a little flat route?
Flat, or that one he goes just up the seam, right behind the depth between the linebackers and the safeties. Yeah. And he's 6'9", just throw it up for him. I'd like to see that a little bit more. It keeps those linebackers to be able to just come downhill on their read steps, and we've seen the issues with Nebraska's offensive line getting to second level in the first 2 games of the season. So I think that's a great play that we saw a lot last year. I haven't seen it as much this year.
Well, Nebraska could absolutely just paper cut Buffalo to death with some run pass option as you roll right. You put Austin kind of in that H-back spot or even end line where he can just block for a count or 2, release, and then just be in the flat. You can go Green Bay Packers or John Gruden, short controlled passing game to your backs or tight ends, and pick up 4 or 5 a play. And you saw Lubick or Frost go back to it in that second quarter where Austin Allen had a 16-yard gash and then another 7-yarder that came back right to him. Use that big body at tight end. Mike Babcock next.
And we're back.
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Senior offensive analyst and longtime assistant coach Ron Brown with us here at 5:05. Rick Pizzo also in hour 2. We say hi to historian, author, Hall of Famer, Mr. Husker Football, Mike Babcock with us at MD Babs on Twitter. Babbers, you sitting out back, you enjoying the weather? How are you, man?
I'm doing okay, but I want to give you a name.
Please.
It's not Khalil Mack, but it's Taylor Riggins. Okay. He's got 15 and a half career sacks.
Riggins? Does he have a mohawk like John?
That I don't know. But my point is I think Nebraska is going to be challenged. The offensive line is going to be challenged because I think that Buffalo can bring some pressure.
Well, they did against Wagner, and that has been Buffalo's kind of MO for a while. They have talented guys that can get after the quarterback. And, you know, Elijah and I were chatting about this, Mike. From a game plan standpoint, Nebraska's got an awful lot of weapons. And it doesn't have to be eventually you want it to turn into big plays because Nebraska had a ton of big plays, and Toure was in the center of that. But you can also nickel and dime on first down, or even if you have a no gain on first down, you can put yourself in third and manageable Saturday by finding your tight ends or your backs, can't you? I mean, is this a game where Nebraska's going to have to throw to run?
Well, I would have said no if you'd asked me last week, but the way things have gone, it looks to me like that's kind of the idea, is that you open up the running game by throwing the ball, and again, I think play action is good. I like that with Martinez, but we'll find out some things, I think, about Nebraska this Saturday playing against Buffalo, because Buffalo will be a challenge.
Mike Babcock's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And, Mike, when you're looking at that run game, do you think that Marquis Stepp did enough against Fordham to secure that number one running back spot, or do you think there's still some question marks about who the number one guy is?
Well, I don't know how they're going to go about it. I mean, I think that they need to identify somebody. At most, 2 guys would be Irvin Jr. and Stepp. I just don't think that you can continue to look at it and say, well, we're going to have 4 guys still competing for that job, or we're going to have more than that. I think you have to settle on 1 or 2 guys, and I think Stepp would be the guy for me if he stays healthy. I think he showed in that game that what he's capable of, and I think that's what you're looking for.
Mike, as you've covered Nebraska football, and we both really enjoy talking offensive line, that is the engine, just like the defensive line's the engine. Specifically in the Big Ten, you got to be really good and be able to run the ball. You got to be able to stop the run. As you remember with Nebraska football, at what point, I know it's always kind of an ongoing living thing, the competition and practice, but what's the latest in the season you remember changes being made or tweaks happening on the offensive line? Because you got your set group, you've got your summer workouts, you've got your fall camp, you designate your starters, and if it ain't working like you want it to, or maybe there's a better option, you go ahead and make the change. I mean, there's no timeline or deadline to making changes. I understand wanting to move forward, but also you can reassess always.
Yeah, my experience. So the last 18 years of Tom Osborne's time as head coach, that's when I was covering the Huskers, started covering, and mostly I remember changes made because of injury. Mm-hmm. That there was so much. They were able to get so much repetition, and things have changed so dramatically. How many days you can practice in the spring, how many days you can go full pads, how many days you can practice in the fall in preparation, all that stuff. I mean, it's just a totally different dynamic. So, but those teams had so much experience in practice, those offensive linemen, that I think that you had the consistency that you're looking for. Plus, as I bring this up every time, I think, but how they would set up the offensive line is you would for sure have a third guard, somebody that could rotate in there, and you would have a third tackle, somebody that could rotate in there at least, minimum, so that you could keep guys fresh, and that's what you're looking for. So if you can identify those guys and kind of stay with them and build the chemistry that you need, because I think right now, and I didn't think I'd be saying this getting ready for the third game this season, I still think the offensive line's a work in progress. I think they're still trying to find where they need to be. And, again, you're going to have a challenge with Buffalo's defense for the offensive line. And I think they have the ability to deal with it, but we need to see that line mesh.
Who would you circle as the third guard and third tackle right now?
Well, I don't know. I'm not smart enough to say who those guys are. I hope they're thinking in those terms, because I think you have to have the ability maybe to rotate guys, and that third guy probably has to be able to play either side.
Well, and a guy that has seen time and has gotten a start, but you saw more of him at guard was Banks.
Yes, right. He rotated in for Corcoran, I think.
He did, and then he also played guard when Teddy got in, Prohaska, in that fourth quarter. And, I think Corcoran's kind of rounding into form here with time missed and injury, so I think he'll get back to Rutgers form sooner rather than later. Left guard, you've got Hickson, who's also your backup center. We didn't get to see Bando last weekend due to an illness, but I'd like to see some of Bando, and I think Piper can continue to battle and get better. At right guard, Sichterman, I mean, he's been a guy that's been in the program for a long, long time, and he stuck with it, and he won a job. And you need that interior on each side of Cam Jurgens really to step forward and pass pro and also run blocking. I think Benhart's played really good ball as well.
Yes, yeah, and like I said, you've listed there's talent in the offensive line. You just got to get to the point where it can mesh, and you got to keep guys healthy, obviously, so that you can move forward. Because that's, again, like we always say, that's where it all begins, up front with the offensive line.
Mike, still a lot of question marks on this Huskers team. We've talked about running back and offensive line here already, but I want to flip the argument a little bit here and ask, what do you think the strength of Nebraska's team has been through 2 games? Is there a position group where you think Nebraska can kind of put a lot on their plate and expect them to step up to the plate, aside from kickoff specialist?
Well, yeah, we've seen Toure has been a good receiver, and Oliver Martin, couldn't play against Fordham, but, he really stepped up in that first game. And I think we had some questions, who are the receivers going to be? Austin Allen did a nice job in the Fordham game. I think that's one area that's potentially a strength. I think there's still development that has to come, and again, people have to be healthy. But I think that's been an area that's been pretty strong. And again, I think Stepp is kind of shown that he can be the number one guy at running back. But they are also obviously have confidence in Urban at that position. And I still say that Martinez is just a talented quarterback with experience, and but he needs to cut down on those mistakes. You can't be fumbling the ball.
So let's talk Cam Taylor-Britt right now. And Scott was pretty emphatic about he's not going to blow a guy out, but don't make the same mistake. This game Saturday could come down to, well, it will come down to field position, but Cam is an explosive, talented athlete, and you want to keep giving him opportunity, but you don't want. I think he's just squeezing it too tight, Mike, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I was glad that Scott said that he wasn't going to hop on Cam Taylor-Britt for those mistakes, and they were serious mistakes. I mean, that is pretty basic. You should know better than to do the things that he did to create those problems. But he is such a talented player. You got to have him on the field, and he's got to know that he has a coach's confidence. So I was glad that Scott said those things. But again, you can't have those mistakes. Those are a veteran player wouldn't make those mistakes. Shouldn't make those mistakes, I should say.
Babbers, a thought on volleyball tonight with Nebraska and, of course, Creighton. Creighton whacking Kentucky. CHI is going to be rocking. I know Jacob and crew will be up there, but what a week and what a example Coach Cook has with this team, where they take on everybody, they get everyone's best shot, and they are so focused and dialed in. It should be awesome tonight in Omaha.
Oh, no question. Creighton has been really impressive, and John Cook, the Huskers have done some. They've kind of mixed things up a little bit in the early in the season to see where they stand, but we'll see a little bit more of what they really plan to do tonight, I think. And it would be nice to have Lauren Stivrins, but they'll do okay. I'm really looking forward to watching this because, as I said, and as you said, Creighton has been really impressive, and I think John Cook said it's the second best team in the country. It's the best team not named Texas. Mm-hmm. Pretty high praise. So
he's right. He's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Babbers, a last thought on Husker athletics. Let's get your take on baseball. I know Will Bolt had time with the media to have about a minute here, but Huskers landing the number 21 recruiting class, and Coach Bolt. I mean, they're talking Omaha, which I appreciate.
Yeah, well, you got to believe first of all, and you got to feel like you can do that. But I think that's a reasonable belief. I think Will Bolt's done a great job in a very short period of time. I like his approach. I like his, he approaches things the way he approached them as a player. He's hard-nosed, gritty, and what was their phrase last year? Gritty beats pretty, and that's the way they approach it. They got a lot of new guys, a lot of talented new guys. So it'll be interesting to see how the two exhibitions, Creighton and Wichita State, plus the Red-White series, a lot on the plate for baseball.
You are still cheering your Giants on?
Yeah, they're hanging in there, but I think they're going to end up second to the Dodgers in the division.
Dodgers have gotten hot. Should be a great fall for baseball, and, of course, the Hall of Fame ceremony today. Babbers, awesome to chat with you, bud. We'll catch you this weekend in the press box, and thanks for joining us today.
Hey, see you then. Thanks for having me.
All right, there he is. Historian, author, Hall of Famer, Mr. Husker Football, Mike Babcock. Good to chat ball with him. And Taylor Riggins. He will get after Nebraska. We'll see if Nebraska gets after him. We head to the fairway next. Mike Schuhart on the way.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time on Wednesday edition Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Senior offensive assistant Longtime coach Ron Brown with us in 20 minutes. Rick Pizzo, Big Ten Buffet on the way. We say hi to our friend from Wilderness Ridge, Mike Schuhart. Shuey's been MIA. We have found him. He's not been in the sand. He's been in the short grass. Shuey, you've just got a loaded golf course today, I'd assume, with all the sunshine. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good. I know. It's been way too long. It's been a busy last month.
You've been working. You've been busy.
Yeah.
You've been teaching. You've been scoring all those tournaments, man. So give us an update first and foremost. The golf setup at Wilderness, how folks can join, how folks can fix that snap hook off the old box through you. And, of course, that swim-up bar that's going to be oh so majestic here in the near future.
It is. It's coming along. It's coming along. Our new pro shop and learning center, we should be in that within the month. So it's taken a lot of shape. So super excited about that. Memberships, go to wildernessridgegolf.com. Tammy Nagel is our membership director. She can answer any questions that you have about joining out here. So it's like, you need to come out. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff happening, and it's starting to slowly take some shape and kind of see what it is. And we're super excited.
I got to get out there for like a Friday deck show again here while the leaves are changing here in September and October.
I know. It's the best time of the year, man. It's been beautiful. Today is just the top 10 day. It's gorgeous out.
Well, you talk to your people. Let's look at that Sparty weekend.
All right. Well, I'll talk to my people. Make that happen.
Shuey, the other question I've got, do you need a test pilot, so to speak, for sampling that swim-up bar once it's done?
Oh, I think we'll need a few of those. Are you into that?
I could. I mean, okay. I'll even wear a shirt in the pool for everyone.
All right, we'll make that happen too.
Look at me begging. Listen to me begging to be on the deck. Listen to me begging to be in the pool.
What am I, chopped liver? No invite for me?
Not yet. Listen, man,
there's more than one seat, so there's at least 2 seats in there. So.
Well, Elijah's got this creepy mustache thing going, so we're going to keep him away
scare
from
off the patrons.
We're going to keep him away from the club. We're going to keep him away. So let's talk football, Shuey. How are you feeling with the Big Red?
How am I feeling? Let's put it this way. I haven't watched either one of the games.
Because?
There's no need to. It's like reading the same book every week for the last 2 years. I don't know anybody that reads the same book over and over for 4 straight years, do they?
There's the Bible, but I mean, no, I get you.
I guess it's the Bible, but we'll exclude the Bible out of that.
So you've been a tad turned off, fair to say?
It's just obvious. I mean, the coaching staff has no clue what they're doing. You know, just listen to the things that he said when he came in here. The Big Ten will adjust to my system. That quite hasn't panned out, has it? How's that panned out for him?
Not well.
Not well. So the Big Ten is just kicking him around like a bad stepchild. So, and then because he's going to come with this plan about how he's going to change the Big Ten and how they play football, and they said, guess you're not. So now what does he do? He doesn't know what to do, and that's obvious. Listen to his press conference, because he's guessing wrong now. I didn't realize a $5 million a year coach guessed at how to put a game plan together and then guess wrong. I didn't realize you guessed at it. I thought those were professionals that actually sat down and studied and worked and had different game plans for different things, but I guess you can just guess and not be right and go, oops, sorry.
Yeah, it's been a little difficult. Plenty of season left. We went up to Illinois for the road show coverage. We're headed down to Norman, so if I get you a seat on Uncle Andy's RV, you're not coming?
No. I can already write the game every time, so I already know what's going to happen. Your punter's going to punt for about 38-yard average. Your special teams are going to be just that. They're going to be super special, all right. Probably not in the right way. So they're going to get no return yards, nothing special out of the special teams, just the opposite. So that's a given because you just see that every week. So, and the thing that's really disappointing to me is that there was one thing that you could count on, at least in the past, is that he was typically really good at scripting the first X amount of plays. So they actually look pretty good on their first drives most of the time. That's changed. Now they look like crap. So it's like, anything that they did good, they don't just do the same stuff they do. Now they just do it for 4 quarters.
Well, Buffalo's big ball game, 13.5 is the number, Shuey, where Nebraska's favored. Looked better after a slow start against Fordham. I totally get the competition, and I know Buffalo's not Big Ten play, but we'll see if they can round into form here, see if they can get better.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you hope, but, I mean, it's to me, it's very discouraging because you haven't seen it. You've seen the same story over and over and over again. It's like you just hope for kind of a different look the next week, but it's the same every week, and same stuff you listen to, and it's like, it's just not good enough for me.
If Nebraska were a golfer, who would they be?
Who would they be? You wouldn't know him because they'd be off the tour.
Okay.
They would have lost their card by now because golf is unique. It's great because you reap what you sow, So I have to go out and perform every time. Every time I teed it up, I had to perform to make a living. Now, you don't have to at Nebraska. Now you got NIL and you got podcasts and you got this and that even players can reap rewards on. My question is, I know I went to school. I was a student athlete. I wasn't a football player by any means, but I was a student athlete, and I can't even fathom that these kids have all this time to do all this other stuff and then try to perfect their craft and learn their craft, go to school, but now they have time to do their podcasts and do their likenesses and then go to their sports psych person because they had a bad week. And I just don't know where they have the time to do all that. They must be way smarter and way better at time management than I was when I was in school.
Mike, before we let you go here, I want to ask you about the Tour Championship we saw this weekend. John Rahm, Patrick Cantlay dueling it out. Patrick Cantlay ends up taking home the $15 million purse. What did you think of the weekend of golf?
That was pretty exciting to watch. You had 2 tournaments that, you had 2 guys battling it out, making it super exciting. And that just goes to show you, man, you get on a roll and your confidence goes up. Patrick Cantlay played some amazing golf. And he just kept at it. I mean, he should have gotten beaten by Bryson the week before numerous times, but he just kept at it, and good thing happened, and he won, and he did the same thing the next week, and it was pretty fun to watch. It's pretty fun to watch 2 guys at the top of their game just going at it shot for shot and clutch putt after clutch putt, clutch shot after clutch shot. I mean, that always makes it super exciting to watch.
Yeah.
People at the best of their craft do what they do at the best.
Yeah, you got to say, performing under pressure, Nebraska football could take a few notes, huh? Perform
under pressure? Are you kidding me? That's a given. You fold up like a wet bag.
Shuey, it'll get better, brother. Hang tight. We will talk next. We will talk next Wednesday. How's that sound?
All right, I'm in.
All right, brother. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Shuey,
Bye-bye.
thank you. Go see Mike Schuhart, Wilderness Ridge. He'll fix your swing. And it'll be awesome. That swim-up bar is calling me. We'll wind down Hour 1, Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com. Just try me. Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, we are 10 minutes away from senior offensive analyst and former longtime assistant coach Ron Brown. He remembers September 11th, how it impacted him, specifically with I would say a coworker, but a teammate when he played at Brown and a player he coached. Both men were and are first responders. So Ron will remember his time in Nebraska as he was part of the BTN coverage last night with the Tunnel Walk show, remembering first responders, the heroes of 9/11, and what Nebraska football did to honor those first responders back on that Thursday night against Rice. So Coach Brown in 10 minutes will spend time with Rick Pizzo, take on Husker basketball as the schedule is out. And, man, that looks like a lot of fun for the Big Red, especially that Sunday, day number 2 into the new year. against Ohio State, probably your favorite in the league. So Husker hoops and plenty of Husker football. Rick is in town to cover Nebraska-Buffalo for BTN. Reminder about buckling up. And there's over 1,500 crashes each year in Nebraska involving an impaired driver driving drunk, buzzed or high, never acceptable, and law enforcement officers still working every day to stop it before more folks are killed or injured. If you're going to drive, don't drink. If you do drink, designate a sober driver or get a ride share. A DUI costs more than you think. Brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Was reading our friend Jabba Chamberlain's tweet about Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter, of course, defining one of the defining players, if not the defining player of the last 25 years in Major League Baseball. Got the Hall call and got the induction. A little weird that it's a Wednesday, not a weekend for Cooperstown. But Carson didn't really get to see. He saw Jeter play a few times, but he switched his number from Ricky Wild Thing Vaughn from 99 to number 2 to tribute Jeter. That side of the family, meaning his mama and him, are Yankees fans. And I always respected Jeter because of how, he got it done in the clutch. He was effortless, was incredible with the average, had timely power, not just gaps, but just he could take one out of the yard, but he just was such a leader. And it was incredible to have a chance to watch him play and kind of resurrect, as much as I don't like them, totally respect them, resurrect the Yankees. And it was Jeter. It was, of course, it was Brocious. It was Paul O'Neill. I mean, it was a group of farm kids, Mariano, obviously, and that farm team brought Yankee baseball back to prominence, then dominance, then titles. Yeah, and then they went on the spending spree, but it was their 94 draft class that got it handled. Their 92 draft class that got it handled.
And it was the spending sprees where I was going to go. My childhood memories are Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter on the left side of that infield, and it was Derek Jeter hitting for singles and doubles, and A-Rod bringing him around with the home run with the long ball. So that team was legendary. I don't think I got to witness Jeter in his prime as much as I wish I could have, but
sure.
Entertaining, big part of my childhood.
No, he was incredible to watch. Ron Brown, fantastic. He's next on Hail Varsity.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. We bring in senior offensive analyst, longtime coach, a number of years with Nebraska football, Ron Brown with us. Coach, gorgeous fall weather out there. How you been?
Great. Yeah, it is. It was really a cool 55 maybe this morning going out, so that was noticeably different, refreshing, feels like autumn. Been great.
So are you a non-sleeves guy?
A non-sleeves guy? Yeah. I'm a long sleeves guy. I used to be when I had muscles. I used to be a no sleeves guy, but now I'm a long sleeves guy.
That's all right. I still think you still work out pretty heavy, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I work out quite a bit. Yes, sir.
Speaking of staying and being in shape, Trev is back at Nebraska. Can Trev still get out there and get after the quarterback about 7-8 plays?
Yeah, if we put his hand on the ground, I think so. I mean, there was a time there with Trev that we were standing him up a lot until sometimes he was rushing, sometimes he was dropping. He was really, I think, and of course he was very good then too, but when we put his hand on the ground, particularly his senior year, he was dynamic. I mean, he was really tough to stop as a full-time rush guy. So, yeah, he had fantastic abilities. As a matter of fact, I literally saw him vertical leap 41 inches from a standstill for the NFL scouts. And, that was impressive. He was probably around 260 pounds at the time when he did it. So pretty impressive back in the day then.
he got around the edge so quick and was great against the run. But I remember, obviously, against Charlie Ward, but just the UCLA game. I mean, his career, even going back to that Halloween night game against Colorado, he was all over it. I mean, a true great, obviously, college football Hall of Famer. Did he play at 260 in Lincoln, or was he a little lighter?
Well, I think for the most of his career, he was a little lighter, but as the NFL scouts were coming around at the end of his senior year, he, I think, started to beef up and, through his workouts and so forth, he was probably going to be in the National Football League, a down guy, so it made sense. But he was impressive. He was twitchy and he was explosive.
Ron Brown's with us on Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, you were featured with BTN's Tunnel Walk program last night, and wanted to spend a few minutes with you on your recollection and the Rice game not long after the terrorist attacks. Let's go back, though, to September 11th. You are a man who grew up on the East Coast, that part of the country, obviously still, even 20 years later, mourning what happened. How did 9/11 affect you?
Well, shocking, Schmitty. I think as it was for everybody in the country, but particularly, I'm originally from New York City, and I lived there for a while. I remember waking up years ago. I lived up in Washington Heights, Harlem area, right on the coastline there of the Hudson River. So on a clear day, from around 152nd Street, or wherever it was I was at, 155th Street, I could look straight down the Hudson River and see the Twin Towers, pretty easily on a clear day. To watch from the television set here on that Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, we were here in the football offices getting ready for another day of practice. To watch those shocking scenes in New York City via television was a tremendous blow, I think, to our country and to everybody, and certainly from a guy who had lived in New York City. So, yeah, it was pretty shocking. I think our nation really responded well. I appreciated President Bush's response to we're not going to just sit down here and play dead and act afraid and be afraid. So it was an inspiration. And, Schmidt, I often think, football's like that. Sometimes you get hit in the mouth. Sometimes the things aren't going your way. Sometimes you get surprise attacked. Now, look, I don't want to equate anywhere near the game of football with what took place in 9/11 and our true first responders at 9/11. I had a college teammate that was a first responder, college football teammate named Charlie Margiotta. Played with me at Brown University in the Ivy League. We were in the same class. We were together in school for 4 years, who was a Staten Island fireman. And as a first responder with 3 little girls at home and his wife, Charlie Margiotta courageously did what first responders do in difficult situations, and he went into that blazing inferno, one of those Twin Towers, and lost his life trying to rescue lives. And so don't hear me equating a football and a football game with what Charlie Margiotta did post-football in his life. The real deal. He paid an ultimate sacrifice. My heart goes out. But football does give us a reminder of what it is to have situations in your life where things aren't always easy or good, and what's your response? And his first response was, go rescue lives. It's not about me. It's not about my life. I'm gonna put my life on the line for others. And so that meant everything to me. That means a lot to me. And I'll always remember Charlie Margiotta, Schmitty, and I'll never forget the fact that it was 20 years, Schmitty, before I even heard from Charlie Margiotta after we had graduated, and he was calling me a couple of weeks before 9/11. I hadn't heard from the guy in 20 years since we had graduated. I just felt like it was the Lord just wanted me to know and be reminded of what it means to live a courageous life. He had contacted me to see if we could have some football reunions and so forth. And I told Charlie, I'm coaching. I can't get there in the autumn. But he kept trying me. And then the next thing I know, he's gone in 9/11. So, yeah, it impacted me a great deal, and that was a very special year for me because of 9/11.
Ron Brown's with us on Hail Varsity Radio. Ron, did you have a chance to reach out to Charlie's family?
I did talk to his wife, but it was prior to the 9/11 incident. We've had some commemorations at the university for him, but to hear his wife's voice, to know that he had I think he might have had 3 young girls. It breaks my heart, Schmitty. I had another player named Mike Babcock, who was a defensive back for me at Brown University. Of course, I had graduated and so forth. On that same day, 9/11, little did I know that Mike Babcock entered that blazing inferno as well, one of those buildings, and he climbed up to maybe around the 100th floor, and he rescued a woman in a wheelchair, an elderly woman in a wheelchair. Became a national hero, was on Oprah Winfrey's show, was on this, that, and the other, and I got a chance to talk to him. So I had 2 guys who I knew very closely from football, one a former player, one a former teammate, and one a former player of mine. One went in to rescue lives and died. The other went in to rescue lives and lived to tell about it. But the fact is that their first response was to go into a dangerous situation on a rescue mission. That, I'll tell you, that's special. And that I'll always remember 9/11 for that. And I'll be reminded that Rice game that we played when Coach Osborne gave that great message over the loudspeaker to 80,000 people, whoever, and all the first responders that we saw, all of that, Schmitty, touches my life. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Ron Brown's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, as a leader, what were you able to do to comfort and calm your kids that were playing for you and also maybe members on staff?
I think Frank Solis did a really good job. You know, we went out to practice that day, Schmitty, after the 2 planes had blasted those Twin Towers. We saw the damage on TV. We were shocked. We heard some of the stories. We were going to hear more later. But that afternoon, we practiced in the afternoon back then. I'll never forget it. You know, there were no planes in the sky that day. Remember, they had canceled all the flights. And it was an eerie feeling because while we practiced in Memorial Stadium each day, we always saw planes flying over, you know, going to the Lincoln Airport, going to Omaha, or coming from those 2 airports. But in this particular day, Tuesday afternoon, September 11th, 2001, there were no planes, except we saw 2 planes during practice. And we believe it was Air Force One with President Bush and I think an accompanying plane, either heading to Omaha or heading from Omaha. We all stopped. Everybody stopped. Schmitty, there were no cell phones back then. We just all stopped, and we took mental pictures, visual pictures that turned mental. We didn't have anything to take pictures with, but we stopped, and everybody looked up in the sky. And we just assumed that, hey, that's got to be President Bush. It seemed like that was the case. Now, we could be wrong, but that was our assessment of the situation. The only planes in the sky that day. I wish I had a camera. I wish I had a phone or something where we could have taken that picture. But we were all moved by that. And not only that, but we were honored not only by us being asked to play the first game back from college football versus Rice, but it was done suddenly, Schmitty. It was a fast turnaround. The decision to play Rice, to change the schedule a little bit, to play Rice on that not the next Saturday after 9/11, but the following Thursday night in a game. It was amazing. Our people in the state of Nebraska filled the stadium. 76,000 people changed their plans in a heartbeat. Faster than a lamb could shake its tail, the people changed their plans and packed that stadium. We had adjusted our classes. We got our players over to the East Campus where we normally stay the night before a game. On Wednesday night, we were able to do that. The university made leaps and bounds to accommodate, and Dennis LeBlanc and our academic staff did a great job of reassessing our classes and so forth, and our players got ready to play. We played a great game that Thursday night against a pretty good Rice team led by Ken Hatfield. I'll always remember the first responders. I'll remember the message from Coach Osborne, which was, I thought, a great message. I'll remember the national anthem. I'll remember taking a knee in the national anthem, not in rebellion to anything, but to get on my knee before the Lord Jesus Christ and thank God that I lived in a nation that offered us protection and offered us the opportunity to not sit back and play dead, but to rise up. A nation that bore a city like New York in that mass chaotic scene where people banded together. New York takes a big rap sometimes against being personable and so forth, but those people rose up and helped one another out and set a great example of what it means for strangers, people who don't normally talk to one another, to come around each other and rebound. And we had a chance during a difficult time to get our senses back together, get our feet back on the ground, not only to play a great game against Rice, but to have a great season. Schmidt, we went on to play in the national championship game that year against the University of Miami. That didn't turn out so well, the game, but the season. We had a Heisman Trophy winner and Eric Crouch. We miraculously got into the national championship game through a weird set of circumstances. It was before the bowl playoffs and all those kinds of things, but it was a memorable year for a lot of reasons. And I think with the whole outline of what happened at 9/11 helped shape the character of our football team and remind us that we live in a great nation, and we were excited that not only the President of the United States but the people would get us back to doing things as we always do. And we were honored to be that first football game that got people back in the stands on Saturday, had military protection, but just these games became reminders of the American spirit that we have.
Ron Brown's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, Senior Offensive Analyst. Coach, this was incredible to hear your story and your connection and kind of diving deep with us with some loved ones you've known in your career, former teammate and a former player. Thanks for sharing. A quick thought, Coach, on 2021 Nebraska and just where you think things are going offensively. I know you're a senior offensive analyst. Last week to this week, did you like the improvement you saw?
Yeah, I do. I do, Schmidt. We started off slow. I think that was pretty recognizable. We had the ball on the ground early on and a couple of hitches there, but we worked through it. And again, you have to look at friction and not just keep slipping and sliding. You've got to turn the friction into traction. And I think our kids did a good job of that. They were able to flush things and move forward. Hats off to Fordham. They played tough. They're a 1AA team. They're not a well-known team, but they came in here and they battled. They had some real competitive kids. That Mike linebacker they had, number 47, at 30 tackles. I don't think I've ever heard of that before. But I'll tell you what, he stayed in the game the whole time. And, I mean, that guy was playing – he was in remarkable physical conditioning. He just played his heart out throughout that day. So you can appreciate players like that and teams that come in here under adverse conditions and situations, not a well-known program, and battle the way they did. But our kids really picked things up as time went on. And so we made some improvement, there's no question. And there's still a lot to improve on, and we're excited about continuing to move forward.
Ron Brown with us. Ron, we'll do this again, Coach, and thanks for your time today.
Oh, you bet, Schmitty. God bless you. Thanks for doing a show on this because although it was tough for us as Americans, the real test of who you are as a man and as a woman and as a person comes from and comes through adversity, and the resiliency that was shown through that time here in Nebraska by our people in particular was exceptional.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut preteen Swedish boy.
Back into it at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Big Ten buffet time. Rick Pizzo with us. Big Ten Network. He'll be in town for Nebraska-Buffalo. Rick, what's good? How are you, man?
Life is good, man. Excited to come to Lincoln for the first time this year. Obviously, just saw a game that we didn't expect the result of when I was at Iowa City. Not that we didn't expect Iowa to win, but certainly not the butt kicking that we saw there. So maybe we get kind of back on the normalcy track this weekend.
Yeah, I want to go back to Iowa City, and I know we talked last week, and I think we both thought Iowa may be a little too tough. They were real tough. What stuck out about Iowa? I mean, Indiana was one of the it teams coming into this year.
Yeah, man, Iowa's defense is for real. I mean, they got some dudes up front. I know they lost Davion Nixon and a couple of other guys, but Zach Van Valkenburg just ate up that Indiana offensive line, and they're really good in the back seven. And I hate to be that guy that says Iowa does what Iowa does, but they're really well coached. They're fundamentally solid. If you make a mistake, you are going to pay for it against that defense, and that's exactly what happened. Michael Penix made a couple of bad reads. His receiver cut a route short or turned it up when he was supposed to cut a route short, and one of those turned into a pick six. One turned into an interception, and then Riley Moss gets another pick six to finish it off. So, I mean, Iowa does everything right. You're going to beat them, you got to have fundamentally solid football, and Indiana didn't.
Rick Pizzo's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Rick, thought as you kind of prep for Nebraska here, slower start against Fordham. It turned out all right. Nebraska able to bounce back after the Illinois loss. You know, what do you see in the Big Red as you come to town?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of a letdown, and I was surprised by that. In the middle of the first quarter, kind of late in the first, or even early into the second, you would expect in the home opener coming off that loss for there to be this supercharged emotion, and it was there when they ran out, and then Fordham kind of slowed the game down a little bit, and the next thing you know, it's 7-7, it's 10-7, and we're waiting for that explosion. Now, it came. You just can't wait that long. You got to be ready to go straight out of the gates. The Buffalo team that's been at the MAC championship a couple of years in a row lost it, and I know they have a new coaching staff, and I know they have a ton of turnover, but this is the kind of team that you don't want coming into your building and building any type of momentum and having the crowd quiet down and wonder what's going on, because that's when things get sideways. So I'm really excited to see, and I think Scott's looking for the exact same thing. Come out fast, man. Show me that you are the more athletic, the more talented team early. Put these guys away as quickly as you possibly can.
When it comes to teams starting slow, the opponent has a lot to do with that. Sometimes you yourself as a squad, either emotionally, mentally, or physically, just don't do what you need to do. As you look at Nebraska, you know, they've been pretty notorious for being in their own way. They can win games. They can play a good quarter. They can play a good half. They can play a good three quarters. They're working on the complete game. I know all teams are looking and working towards perfection, right? They keep chasing that. Now, with Nebraska, as you see them, is this just a confidence thing, a stress thing, or is it just a matter of gelling? If you were to put your finger on it, if you were to kind of give me your take.
It can't be gelling at this point, right? I mean, now this group has been together for long enough. I think it's confidence, and I think it's, I love to relate stuff to golf, right? I mean, you hit one left off the first tee. The first thing that you're thinking about when you get on the number 2 tee is not to go left. And so invariably what happens? You go over the top of it and you pull it left, right? And I think that's been what we've seen from Nebraska. Don't get nervous. This is a game you should win. We're going to be okay. They're not going to be in this game. The next thing you know, the team's in the game. We can't afford to lose. You can't play football. You can't play any sport and be successful if you are playing not to lose. You have to play to win. And I think that sometimes a little bit of this pressure that's built up over the last couple of years, I feel like I have seen some times where I'm watching these guys play not to lose as opposed to playing to win, especially against teams that they're expected to beat. So go out there this weekend and play like the team that is expected to beat Buffalo fairly handily. And if you can do that a couple of weeks in a row, then you start to change your mentality, but they need to do it a couple of weeks in a row. It has to be a more consistent thing.
Consistency's key, and Coach Frost has talked about that. We're wanting to see consistency on the offensive line, find that hot running back, and above all, Rick, give Adrian some time because he was pretty good when he was kept clean last weekend.
Yep, I agree. And I think that's the main thing for Adrian, right? When he doesn't start thinking too much and when he can just play within himself, he remains one of the most dangerous quarterbacks in this league. When he starts getting those happy feet because guys are in the backfield and he starts thinking too much, that's when he makes the throws that make us scratch our heads. So there's no one that, to me, that description applies more to than Adrian. Once Adrian settles in and gets that confidence, I mean, I think part of the reason he was so good his freshman year was because we didn't know, right? There were no expectations. He was just playing ball. And I think for 2.5 years we've kind of waited for him to just get back to being that guy who's out there playing ball and showing everybody up.
You're right. It's easy to go in playing free, and he had talked about that leading up to Illinois. Now, as many things that went wrong against the Illini, Nebraska still had a chance to pull a rabbit out of their hat. They didn't. As you look Nebraska now going into this third game, you know, what's impressed you on the other side of the ball defensively? What have you taken? What have you studied about the Husker defense?
Well, you know, defensively, especially watching the Illinois game, Chris, because I was there in person, I felt like the first half of that game they did a really nice job getting after the quarterback. Obviously, you knock Brandon Peters out of the game, and then you knock Art Sikowski around a little bit. I thought Payne was really good early in that game, but the problem then becomes if you don't stop the run and you're trailing, why is anybody going to put their quarterback in harm's way? And we didn't see that. Sikowski made one or two big throws, but then he just kind of settled underneath, tight ends, let your running backs do the work. So what you have to do is be able defensively to get that same kind of quarterback pressure that they had against Illinois, but also to be solid in gap sound. And I think that's something that we haven't talked enough about defensively, or at least outside of Lincoln, maybe you talked about it a lot in town, is that sometimes when those guys want to go for the sacks and the tackles for loss and the big plays, they lose what the coaches call gap integrity, right? And that happened a bunch against Illinois. It can't happen if this defense wants to be as good as I think it can be, because I'll be honest with you, I think this can clearly be the best defense of the Scott Frost era.
They have the depth and talent to be there, but you're right. The gap integrity, and you saw, and Coach Chins talked about it yesterday, guys maybe trying a bit too hard, doing too much, and not doing their job, and you had a couple of busts, 25 and 30-yard run by Fordham. You get deeper into your schedule, Oklahoma, Buffalo, Michigan State, with what they looked like against Northwestern and their ground and pound, could be difficult. But the black shirt D has been pretty good. We'll see if they take another step this weekend. Rick, we'll get you out of here. Special teams, and it's been interesting with Cam Taylor-Britt. He's not going to lose his job per Scott Frost, but Cam can do some really nice things in the return game. But we talk about guys maybe trying too hard. There could be case in point right there.
Yeah, but Scott made it clear, right? He's like, I'm not going to take a guy's job away because he makes one or two mistakes. And so I think that's the head coach telling you, listen, you're the best guy I got back there. I know that when you make the right decisions, you're the most dangerous guy I have back here. You're the one that can put us in a spot where we have good field position offensively every time we're about to get the ball back. But don't make mental mistakes. Execution mistakes, they happen. Sometimes you drop the ball. Sometimes you run the wrong way. You run into the coverage instead of away from the coverage. You can't field the ball in places where you're not supposed to field the ball, and you can't expose the ball when you're not supposed to expose the ball. So you get rid of those couple of things, and I think he can be a dynamic return. He is a dynamic return man. You just need to be able to trust the guy fundamentally on the lowest level. Then, after that, then you can go ahead and show me how dynamic you are.
Basketball question real quick. I look at Nebraska. The Big Ten schedule is out. A nice schedule for the Big Red. Some opportunity at PBA during the week and into the weekends. As we get closer to basketball season, what's an expectation for you with this squad Hoiberg's got? A lot of talent coming in.
Oh, Oh, man, you're killing me. I haven't even had a chance to look at the schedule. It's week 3 of football season, Schmidt. I just got off the golf course. I'm getting ready to come to Lincoln for a football game. Come on, man.
Oh, surprise. My fault, Rick. But, hey, just overall, you know who's back, you know who's coming in. But, man, it's really going to be, Michigan, Ohio State, Iowa. I know Iowa loses a lot, but, Sparty never goes away. It's still going to be a pretty tough Big Ten, don't you think?
It's going to be a tough league. I mean, I don't think the league is going to be quite as dangerous top to bottom maybe as it's been the last couple of years because of, the losses that you mentioned. Obviously, if you're Iowa and you lose Wieskamp and Luka Garza, you can't be expected to be the same team. And that applies to some other teams as well. But I think this is going to be, once again, a deep league, obviously, once again, a talented league. So, I don't have any issue if Nebraska is a team that is basically trying to contend with the teams that they should be. Listen, it's really hard in this league, especially on the road, right, to go on the road and beat teams that are maybe more talented than you. And as much talent as Nebraska is bringing in, and obviously Fred has done an amazing job on the recruiting trail, they are still going to be chasing a lot of these teams in terms of overall talent. So you circle the games, and coaches would never do this publicly. They probably never even do this to their teams. But you circle the games against teams that you are equal with talent-wise, and you say, those are the games we absolutely have to win, especially when they're at home. And if you can do that, then everything else is bonus.
Rick Pizzo will be in Lincoln, Nebraska-Buffalo, Big Ten Network on the sidelines. Rick, thanks for a few minutes, bud.
Chris, always my pleasure, man.
There he is, Rick Pizzo from BTN with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Still have a Jock Doc coming up here in just a second. But Rick, with some insightful thoughts on what he saw from Nebraska-Fordham, as well as what he's looking forward to this weekend in the Nebraska and Buffalo game. Absolutely loaded show, as if you missed Ron Brown's interview to lead off this hour, something you got to get checked out, as that will be up on the ESPN Lincoln Twitter account here shortly, if it is not up already, as well as ESPNLincoln.com. Back in the first hour, we heard from Husker historian and author, as well as a writer for Hail Varsity Magazine, Mike Babcock. Mike Babcock also going to be up on the ESPNLincoln.com. And we also heard from Mike Schuhart. If you missed any of the interviews or any of the show, make sure to catch it on the Hail Varsity YouTube page, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you like to get your podcasts. A Jock Doc is next here on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And we're back.
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Back at it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Time for a Jock Talk Wednesday. Dr. Brandon Seifert is with us. Lincoln Orthopedic Center. Dr. Brandon, you got some golf weather going. How are you?
Yeah, right. It looks pretty awesome out there. I know it. I wish I brought the clubs along with me.
Well, another time. It'd be a little tough to golf with a chipped right index finger. Trey Lance is dealing with that, the Niners quarterback, really high draft pick, of course, out of North Dakota State. And that news out about a week ago from Kyle Shanahan, missing about a week or so. Did this against one of the preseason finale, and talk to me a little bit about chips and short-term, long-term issues here. What is Trey Lance dealing with?
Yeah, a couple of things on the finger chips. The big thing is, obviously, it depends on where it's at. When we start hearing about, finger chips, we start to worry about, is that a little area where maybe a tendon pulled off the bone? In particular, one of the most common things we'll see is a thing called a mallet finger, which is basically, if you think about anatomically, where you extend or bring your finger out straight. That's called extension. At the very end of your finger, there's a tendon that hooks on just kind of right before the nail starts. And what can happen there, if you kind of jam your finger, you can actually have a piece of that tendon kind of pull off, and it usually will pull up a little chip of bone with it. Then you lose the ability to extend the tendon out. So that's a possibility here. They didn't describe this exactly what it is, but that'd be one of the things I'd worry about. That's called a mallet finger. You can flip the hand over and kind of reverse that, and if you're kind of bending your fingers down or flexing your fingers down, there's another thing called like a jersey finger, where you kind of get your finger stuck in somebody's jersey and it rips it forward. That can also knock off the tendon and cause little kind of bone chip fractures as well. And so that's obviously a possibility. And then kind of the third thing that's a possibility for him is this might be a deal where he actually dislocated that finger and they popped it back in place. Sometimes you get little bone chips from that too. So we definitely have a couple possibilities here. Obviously, the big thing is it's a chip. They didn't have to do surgery on it, at least it sounds like. And so should be something that you can recover fairly quickly from. If it's just a chip and not one of those kind of tendon issues, then you're basically looking at going kind of week to week. When you get your motion and strength back, you can play. But if you're looking at one of those situations where, in particular that tendon on the back of the finger where you straighten your finger out, if you have a mallet finger, then you're looking at being one of these kind of straight finger splints, if you will, for about 6 weeks. And you maybe could go back to doing some playing in about 3 or 4 weeks with the splints on, but obviously as a thrower, that makes that pretty tough.
Dr. Brandon Seifert's with us, Lincoln Orthopedic Center at Jock Doc Wednesday. We're talking Trey Lance and a small chip in his right index finger. What's the timeline here of rest tell you with 7 days?
Yeah, it's been 7 days. It probably is going to feel like motion-wise he's still pretty that kind of grip strength. Then you think about, as you're kind of going through your mechanics and how much kind of that last kind of finger to roll off the ball and the index finger, you do worry about some control issues there. And so, he's probably a guy that needs another, I'm guessing, maybe 2 to 3 weeks on this, most likely.
Dr. Brandon, you dropped out, but we got the gist of the timeline here and kind of reading into that 7-day period of rest. And you're right, with being a right-hand thrower, you do the motion, that last finger to touch and roll pre-thumb release is that index finger. And where this happened was Lance's follow through hitting another player's helmet. Now, he stayed in the game, but over the years you've had to see tons of hand or even wrist injuries. A lot of times it's the thumb, right? But sometimes you get the different fingers. That is one of the main causes, isn't it, of quarterback injury, specifically with the hands, is drilling either a lineman's or defensive player's helmet.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. That's a great point. We do see a lot of that. It really is, hand injury is probably the most common thing we see, obviously coming off somebody's helmet, getting tackled, kind of landing on top of the hand, lineman kind of in your face, and you getting your hand kind of swatted away by one of the linemen. So we do see those quite frequently for sure.
When it comes to taping and splinting, he was able to tape that finger, and I don't know how big Lance's hands are, but I would think if you're taping index to middle, you can still grip the football, but are you still, from an accuracy and a velocity and a strength standpoint, the arm's still going to be strong, but the grip is got to be concerning. If you're, bent on playing him even after this and he's still not 100%, that's got to affect what you're going to call, right, in the passing game based on his grip ability and his accuracy?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point, Chris. So that's really the big thing, is that obviously the arm strength is good, but that grip strength is really key. How's the grip strength going to be in terms of your control? So then you start looking at, okay, what kind of different game plan are we going to call with him to maybe bring it more into kind of a short passing type situation? But even some of those, you got to put some zip on the ball to get it out there in the short, flat area. So that's going to be a challenge.
So when it comes to, I guess, monitoring and treating, what is going on with the 49er medical staff here with Lance? Is it ice? Obviously, you splint it, but what anti-inflammatory? Do you numb it? What are the steps here to try and at least alleviate some pain?
Yeah, the biggest thing with these is that they really do, the fingers are pretty unforgiving. They really do tighten up pretty quickly. And so in particular, these chip fractures usually kind of center around the joint aspect, and so it tends to stiffen up quickly. So really want to get very aggressive with therapy with these right away. Again, if it's just a chip fracture, you're not really worried about a big piece of that bone displacing and being an issue down the road. It's more we got to get motion back, and so as you get your motion back, then the strength piece comes. We've talked before in the show about doing injections, doing some numbing medicine for the game, Is that a smart thing to do? It'd be pretty tough in this scenario, just when you think about, again, this whole control issue. If you start, putting numbing medication in there, now you're looking at, basically having a finger that's not working very well. You kind of lose out some of that control. So that, unfortunately, wouldn't be really a great option, in this setting.
Just thinking about it too. I mean, are you gonna, when it comes to the snap, are you more prone to injury, Dr. Brandon, under center or shotgun? Re-injury, I should say.
It's probably more in the shotgun situation. Really? At least under center, you have a pretty good feel for where you kind of know right where that ball's going to be. In the shotgun scenario, it's coming out. There's a little bit more chance it could be off to one side or the other. So there's probably a little bit more chance you could kind of tweak this a little bit. Obviously, it depends too if you're one of those quarterbacks that's spending a lot of time reading the defenses, and then you kind of look last second about where the ball's being snapped. Again, there's an opportunity there that you could kind of retweak this thing as well.
Yeah, and what's real quick? What's the re-injury rate with a bone chip in your finger? Is it pretty common or not so much?
It's actually pretty common to kind of retweak this. That tissue, again, that tissue's so sensitive. And so when you kind of bump this thing again, you'll kind of go right back in that zone of that. It's stiff again. The strength piece goes away, and so there'll be some ups and downs for him. There'll be about one of those kind of 3 to 4 week kind of growing pain periods that he'll go through as he moves back through this recovery.
Dr. Brandon Seifert, Lincoln Orthopedic Center at Jock Doc Wednesday. Trey Lance, our topic. Dr. Brandon, thanks for the time.
You bet, Chris. You guys take care.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Hail Varsity Radio here one last time on a Wednesday. It's Elijah Herbel wrapping up the show for you today as we are nearing closer and closer to Nebraska volleyball's matchup with Creighton. That's coming up here in about 30 minutes as the Huskers facing a ranked Blue Jays team, their first ranked opponent of the season for the Huskers. John Cook calling the matchup a celebration of volleyball. Specifically, it's a celebration of volleyball in the state of Nebraska, as there are a combined 10 players that are from Nebraska being featured in tonight's game. It should be a good one, as the Creighton volleyball program really building up in recent years. Should be a raucous crowd up at the CHI Health Center, and I'm really looking forward to watching this one as the Huskers season is ramping up. They will have a host of top 25 teams coming to Lincoln as they wrap up their non-conference slate. Utah's coming up, Stanford's coming up, Louisville's coming up, and they're going to get their matchups with top 25 teams underway. With Creighton tonight, 6:30. That one on TV. FS1 is where I will be watching that, as looking forward to seeing the Huskers and the Blue Jays battle it out. That in-state battle heating up in volleyball, heating up in basketball, as the Husker volleyball team looking to keep their strong start to the season rolling. They've had some ups and downs, but they are still undefeated on this young season, looking to keep that streak going, as the Huskers definitely got to be looking for a national championship this year after the disappointing COVID season. I should say the finish to their COVID season last year. I'm really looking forward to seeing them get a test tonight from Creighton. Before we get out of here, I want to talk a little bit about Big 12 expansion, as the AAC is awaiting the exit notices from Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati, as Cincinnati reportedly requested officially to join the Big 12 today. The AAC looking to expand in response to their top three teams, essentially, in terms of moneymakers. When you look at Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati, they're drawing the most eyeballs every single year to the AAC, and Cincinnati's football team under Coach Fickle really on the up and up. There was discussions, if the Big Ten's got to expand, do they look at Cincinnati? Well, looks like the Big 12 will be getting Cincinnati here shortly. The AAC wants to retain their status as they call themselves Power 6. Not sure what to take away from that. The 6 power conference, I don't buy that one bit. But they're looking to expand to keep pace as they're losing their top 3 teams. Again, if you missed any parts of the show today, it was a good one as we had Mike Babcock back in the first hour, as well as Mike Schuhart. It's been a while since we checked in with Shuey. Shuey joining us from an under construction Wilderness Ridge, as the lessons been ramping up as the weather's been cooling off. Shuey was money, as he told us he really isn't that interested in watching Husker football this year until they show him something different than they've shown in recent years. And then in hour 2, we had a great sit down with Coach Ron Brown, who had some really personal stories from 9/11, as well as that 9/11 tribute that Nebraska put together for that Rice game, which was about 20 years ago now. And then we also heard from Rick Pizzo. He's going to be in town for Buffalo, Nebraska before the Jock Doc wrapped things all up. It was a loaded show today. We got more coming your way tomorrow. Jeremiah Searles sitting down with us at 5:25. We love Searles. That's all coming up tomorrow. This has been Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.